Mm-hmm. Hey, Joshua.
Hey.
Hey.
Long time no talk, my friend.
Yeah, let me just turn this up. You're a little quiet. Yeah, so, what are you doing now? You're hanging back at home?
Yeah. As weird as that seems now.
Yeah, that must be a little weird. So, you just kind of disappeared on me at that one point, huh? I was like, all of a sudden, it's like, what is going on here?
Yeah, I can only imagine. That was quite a weird experience. That was 4.5 months of something I never thought I would go through.
4.5 months. Yeah, that's a lot of bullshit. Absolutely. I was always wondering, and of course at the time I'm like, I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know why you were arrested. When I was talking to your sister and your mom, and I'm like, why were you like essentially? Why is you and your mom, targeted that day? It just seems so weird.
Well, would you like to know?
Sure. Yeah. Well, I mean, I got I kind of heard a little bit, but nothing was very much confirmed for me.
Well, what ultimately happened, I mean, some of it's going to be in hindsight, so I'm talking from my present self, not from in the moment.
Here, can you hold on a second? Hold on, I can barely hear you for some reason. You want to call me on Signal or something?
I don't have Signal on my phone, actually, because one weird thing is my phone is still in the possession of the police.
Oh yeah, how stupid is that? Of course, they don't want you. Did you? Because we're all wondering what was on film as well, right? And nobody was able to get your phone. I don't know why you're so quiet. Here, I'll just call you. Call me back. Give me a call again, okay?
Sure.
Okay, bye. Joshua, out of jail after 4.5 months in jail. Gnarly. Let's see what gives me a call again. Okay, can I? Hello. Okay, yeah, that's a little better. That's better.
Okay, I took the phone out of my shirt pocket, so I'm holding it closer to my face.
Well, that could have been why. So, yeah, why don't you tell us what happened?
So to go over the day of February 24th.
Oh, you're going quiet again, dude. You're going quiet again. You gotta speak up.
Okay. I'm trying to talk quiet because I also don't want everyone in my neighborhood to hear the story because some people will judge it. I don't think everyone's ready to hear the full story quite yet, but I know your audience has already had a familiarity, so they're more open to it. But so what happened on February 24th is my mother and I were going grocery shopping, and on our way back, so as many people know, I was going through the process of deregistering myself using common law knowledge and other matters of that knowledge. I was also learning something called syntax grammar. That's more for later on in the story, but I hadn't registered my automobile. However, I still had a driver's license, but I was not using it. I was not wanting to act under that ID, and I was wanting to create my own ID. I had not done it up to this point. And so as my mom and I were coming home, we ended up getting pulled over by a man acting as a police officer, and so I kind of panicked because I had heard from my matter with the Crown prosecutors here in Quebec that they had applied different charges for me, and they also had a warrant for my arrest, and I had imagined that they were still in place. So I didn't know exactly what the charges were because they never told me, and they didn't tell me even really what the reasons for the warrants of arrest, other than for failure to show up to court. And then, so when the police officer, the man acting as a police officer, pulled my mother and I over, he asked for ID and registration, and I told him that be identifying myself or giving my identification, and I said, is there any particular reason why you pulled this over today? And he said my automobile, or vehicle is the terms that he used, was not registered. And I still had a plate on my car, despite it not being registered. That was a mistake on my part. I should have removed it in hindsight, but nevertheless, that was what happened. Then I asked further questions. I said, okay, so I am not driving my vehicle. I'm actually, in fact, conveying my property. And are you aware of the difference? And he didn't know the difference. And I tried going deeper into this. I said, well, there is a difference, and it's sad that you don't know that I can act in my private capacity. I'm a man conveying my property, my automobile, and I'm not acting under the capacity of a driver's license, therefore not using a vehicle either, and I'm not conducting commerce, and he didn't comprehend what I was saying. And then he repeated again, asking for my driver's license and registration, and I said no.
Yep.
He again asked, and he said if I didn't identify myself and give him registration, that he was going to arrest me. And I said, well, I don't see how that's grounds for that type of conduct. And then he continued with the matter, and he said, okay, well, if you don't roll down your window and you don't provide your identification or your registration, I'm going to smash your window and I'm going to arrest you. And at which point I basically said, well, I hope you have a wonderful day, sir. I'm going to continue on my way, but I do not see that is sufficient grounds for that type of activity, essentially. I may have said something different. Of course, the videos are going to tell the truth, because they are the facts of the matter, but I don't have those. But that is basically what happened for myself. And after that point, I drove off. The police, or the man acting as police, panicked. He tried grabbing onto my automobile. Then he got into his other vehicle, or into his automobile, and then turned on his lights and sirens. And I was driving 40 kilometers in a 50 zone, 40 kilometers an hour in a 50 zone. And then he scooted around us as soon as he was able to, and then stopped in front of us. And I stopped, and he came over and he started smashing my window with his hand, or hitting it, if you will. He hadn't broken it at this point. And he punched it 3 times, and I also recorded this, so it would be on the second video. And then after the failed attempt, the third failed attempt, he took his baton, if you will, the telescoping stick,
Yeah.
and he smashed it 1 time. I put my arm up to brace the window, and it completely shattered on my arm, but I was wearing a jacket and a long sleeve shirt, so no glass really landed on my arm. But it was all over in the inside of the vehicle, or automobile. So after this point, he reaches into the automobile, and I'm missing another key point. I was asking him when he stated that he wanted to arrest me and also break my window. I asked him, by what right am I your property as a man? And he didn't answer that question. And also the other question that I asked was, by what right is this automobile your property? And he didn't answer that question, and I asked it multiple times, and that would be in the recording. And then going back to what happened is, then after he broke the window, he reached into the automobile, and I started to try and swerve around his vehicle to drive. Well, the road was fairly open, so there was no sidewalk on the right-hand side. I was swerving to the right-hand side, and it was basically an open side of the road. It was, it was wide enough that my automobile would fit.
Yeah, this is after he smashed your window, right?
Yeah, exactly. And
yeah.
So he reached in, grabbed the steering wheel, and I couldn't turn it at that point. It would have taken a lot of effort because he was a rather strong man. And from that point, well, he says that I bumped into the back of his automobile. I don't know in that moment because, well...
What's going on? Yeah, that sounds pretty intense, dude.
Yeah, it was pretty intense. So he says that I bumped into his automobile, the bumper. From what I knew, I stopped because I hit the brake and I thought I didn't hit anything. And then I put the car into reverse, and then he started to scramble more. I had not seen the second automobile for the police pull in behind me, and so when I backed up, I ended up backing up into the other police vehicle.
Yeah, sounds like a little scene of a movie.
Yeah, it was pretty intense. And so I hit the vehicle, completely shocked at this point. I tried, I put the vehicle back into drive, or my automobile back into drive, and then the police officer in the second automobile had come out of his vehicle, and then actually got back into it, pushed my car into the other vehicle in front of me, and then that was when I hit the bumper. So I know for a fact because I felt it, and I was pinned directly between the two vehicles, the two police cruisers.
With your vehicle, yeah.
At that point, the original man that I was dealing with in the exchange, he started grabbing my arms and trying to immobilize me, and then I grabbed for his vest, and I ended up grabbing his radio, and I screamed into the radio, "Mayday, mayday, help, help, I'm being attacked by the police." This would be in the audio recording. And then the exchange continued. He grabbed my arm in rather aggressive manner, and so I ended up biting him twice on the hand. Nothing hard. My intention was not to break skin. It was more to just loosen his grip or grab me in a manner that I felt wouldn't risk my safety, if you will. After that, he punched me in the face 3 times and also grabbed my throat twice. He also, he didn't, to clarify, even if he did grab my throat, he did not squeeze tight or anything. It was, I think, just more a manner of shock. I don't think it was appropriate action, but I also don't want to judge him for what he did. Then he grabbed pepper spray and he tried spraying my face, but I put my head down and it bounced off of my face and hit him directly in the eyes.
Yeah, he's just spraying you and it bounces back and hits him, yeah. Wild.
Yeah, and the other officer had my arm at this point, and he was trying to put me into an arm bar. Just give me a sec here. I'm going to check. Oh, you're good. I have to watch the bunnies at the same time, so.
No worries.
And then from that point, it really become more of a struggle. It was 2 men on one. My mom was screaming, and she was wrapping herself around me, and the police were trying to pull me out of the automobile from the driver's side.
Yeah, through the window, yeah.
And I was pushing my legs up against the door panel and pulling them in as much as I could. And the original man that I was dealing with in the exchange, he actually ended up ripping my jacket, the sleeve almost entirely off. And this was a hunting coat, if you will, so not an easy thing to accomplish to demonstrate the level of force that was being applied in the matter from both of us in a way. And then the second officer ended up being able to grab my arm and putting it in an armbar. First, he tried applying pressure, and I don't know how to describe it, but he basically pulled my forearm out and then pushed it against the D-pillar of the car. And I looked at him and doing that. So he took that into consideration and pulled my arm further, and then twisted it in a location that was very painful and could have dislocated my arm. And so he then held me in that point. It then became a discussion between the police officers and my mother, telling her to turn off the car, put it in park. A lot of yelling. My mom was saying, I will not put the car in park or turn it off unless you let go of my son. And then I would look to him and I said, I'm not going anywhere. Let go of one of my hands that I can actually move, and I will put the car in park and I'll turn it off. It's like, I can't do anything at this point. And the one officer that had put me in an armbar applied greater pressure, and it was extremely painful. But eventually a third officer, because by the end of the exchange there was 5 police vehicles, 7 total police. But a third officer, who was a sergeant, ended up coming, one hit, smashed the window on my mom's side, and opened the door, unclipped her seatbelt, and ripped her out of the car violently. I had enough mobility for my head to be able to actually witness this firsthand. I saw exactly how it occurred, and it was really extreme. So my mom was thrown on the ground. She was screaming to help to a lady on the sidewalk, and then eventually the third police officer comes back and puts the car in park and turns it off. And I tried blocking him from taking the keys, even if he had already put it to park, because I wanted to maintain all of my property, but nevertheless, that was the end of the exchange. And after that point, I had basically asked the second officer that had my arm in a bar to put my arm back into a place that would be more comfortable, because it was extremely painful. And finally, after making several attempts to ask him, he said yes, and he put my arm straight. I made wincing faces because it hurt, and I said thank you for not breaking my arm, because he could have. And then they slowly took me out of the vehicle and arrested me. I mean, there was more to it after that, but that's kind of the general, or rather as detailed as I can at the moment.
That's pretty detailed already. Yeah, I definitely didn't know much of that at all. Your mom's recollection obviously is not the same. Why were you initially? Was it just a random plate? What initially brought them onto you? Was there anything? Is there more to the story, or was it just that your plate was not there, or an expired plate, or not registered?
Well, I found out at court that what they had done is the police officer that initiated the exchange ran my plate, and he found out, 1, it wasn't registered, and then 2, that on my profile, they said that I was a free man of the land. Now, I've heard of this so-called title, if you want. I've never been affiliated or associated or wanted to be connected to this type of organization, and I think it's essentially a derogatory term that is thrown around to somebody who doesn't wish to stand under another's authority. Now, that's not how I wish to conduct myself, but nevertheless, that's how they had titled me.
Free man of the land?
Yeah. And so basically on my file it said, this man is dangerous, deal with care.
And that was based off of like what we talked about when you had the apartment building a long time ago.
Yeah.
Okay, and you were obviously going to court for that and dealing with that in whatever capacity.
Yeah, well, I think one of the biggest things was my failure to not appear at court, and the messages that I sent to the directors of the DPCP, or the Crown Prosecutors of Quebec.
Yeah, that's what
So
your
they
mom
were
was
the ones.
saying, or your sister. They were saying it might have been instigated because you were contacting the Crown to,
Yeah.
doing some common law, or possibly trying to get further
Yep.
information about what they're hassling you about, or what they want to charge you with, or etc.
Yeah, it was a bunch of different things. The biggest thing is I was wanting to challenge them on their stance and also share my truth in the way that I saw it, and get peace on my matter. Now, to be clear, I was also demanding a large sum of money because I believed what they were doing was not right. And I will share my perspective on that. I do believe that that was also a failing on my part because other people have shared or used similar knowledge as myself, and they've never gotten the same situations, but they've also never demanded money from these people, like the Crown prosecutors in Ontario or Alberta or Manitoba or whatever province that there is. So for me, I kind of put a target on my back by doing that, and I became a lesson at that point.
You mean you're in terms of after the damage has been done, charging them for your time, like you said, per minute?
Yeah. Yeah, so I charged, some of the charges that I did was pain and suffering, and then illegal detainment, which is something that is used in the Supreme Court of Canada. However, I don't know. I doubt I used the appropriate definition. I created my own definition of what it was, and I shared it with the directors of the Crown Prosecutor Corporation. And yeah, basically I made it really difficult for myself at that point.
So because of
without even
you,
realizing.
by practicing the common law that you were studying and learning and teaching, they put a label onto you, or did one of these prosecutors then put out a thing against you saying like you're harassing them, or like and that's why police are also like going to were investigating a charge on you because you were contacting the Crown on behalf of your case and seeking damages?
Well, that's an interesting thing. So, because of me going to prison, I ended up finding out a lot of things. So one of them was that they had filed criminal harassment and death threats on me. These were the charges. So that was from the Crown prosecutors. They said that I was harassing him. So criminal harassment is when you send too many messages or you try calling or contacting a member of the public organizations, like Crown corporations type thing, but particularly those that work in the legal system. Now, I'm not 100% on the definition of it, but basically they were saying I was not being very kind in my communication.
Okay. And in the end, when you were in prison, your mom and sister said that there was several charges. I mean, I remember your voice recording. In the end, what is like the end of all the charges that were the ones that stuck and the ones that they eventually dropped because they're bullshit? So what in the end was the end result of all these charges?
Well, oh man.
I mean, obviously you're still in the middle of it. You just got on bail, essentially.
No. I was held 4.5 months because I was found guilty.
Okay, you were found
So,
guilty a long time ago, before you even had a lawyer or
no.
anybody, or just representing yourself, or what?
So, we're kind of getting ahead of ourselves in the story, but to basically tell you what happened in the end is I was found guilty of 5 different charges for the matter with the police, and then I was found guilty of 4 other charges of other things, through 2 for the messages for the Crown prosecutors, and then 1 for breaking my court order conditions for the breaking and entering charges. So those are the 4. So in total, I was guilty of 9 charges. Now, The first one I was trying to deal with was the one with the police. So that was 2 counts of assault to a police officer, resisting arrest and failure to stop, and damage to a police vehicle under $5,000. So those were the 5 charges.
Yeah.
And
the dealing with the incident, essentially, yes.
Yeah. And I was found guilty on all of those because I lacked the appropriate knowledge to be able to really deal with that matter. And
yeah, essentially you're saying no, and in the end it bit you really hard, in the sense that, you know, what capacity you could have gone down, what route, and those specific charges, right?
Well, and it wasn't necessarily just saying no. I was using a knowledge known as syntax grammar or quantum grammar, and I was only just starting to learn it before this matter had come about with the police.
Yeah.
And so I started applying that knowledge, and even had somebody walk me through it. Now, it was really challenging because he lives in another province, and I'm here in Quebec, and the phone system in the prisons is extremely frustrating. It's basically, I'll put it this way: if you call any phone number outside of the town or the location that you're based in, then it's long distance. And when it's across provinces, it becomes even more expensive. So a 20-minute phone call was $50 with me.
Oh yeah.
And then I spent over $700 making phone calls trying to deal with this matter, and it was really expensive. But I kind of had to, in order to get through this. 1, to communicate with my family, and then 2, just to get the knowledge that I felt like I could defend myself.
That's totally bullshit to charge you long distance. We all know what goes on with the phone companies, and so this is just the prisons, or whatever you want to call it, the jail, or the service that they're offering. They're just trying to fuck you over. That's all they're doing with financials. That's all that is. There's no such thing as long distance across Canada with any service provider there is.
Yeah, well, it's Bell. So Bell is in partnership with the prisons.
No, they're in cahoots. It's like Mario's Towing in Kelowna.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
No, they're making up rules that there's nobody you can object to at the time.
Yeah, totally. And you're totally in a disadvantaged place because technically or lawfully, I'm supposed to be able to access legal counsel at any time, and I should have a private room. But then the people at the prison basically said, no, you're only allowed a private room right before you go to court, and it has to be a lawyer, not any competent counsel.
Yeah, so then they limit you on, like, you know, you're only allowed to do this if you're a lawyer, and that just, again, it's working within their own system.
Yeah, and the really big challenge is the people who work at the prison have been given a set of rules, but they don't actually know all of the law. So, and I even found this was the case with police officers too, is they're given a set of knowledge around particular laws, but not all of the law.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, I've watched tons of those cop shows, or, you know, police essentially verbating what law they know, but none of them actually know any law. I mean, we're just talking about citizens who decided to be a cop, and they don't know anything, and they just reverberate the same things over and over, which are wrong, right? And never actually study anything.
They're right in a certain context. So within the confines of the legal system, yes, they're right. To a certain respect, of course, because, I mean, it's not dealing with the personal knowledge that each of them have, but the thing is, it's only within the confines of the legal system and not beyond that. It doesn't deal with ideas or concepts or ways of doing things that are separate.
Oh, I'm taking it away in general. I've seen a lot of videos where guys will sit out, you know, they could be in public streets near a prison, and then people come out from the prison saying, you can't be here. And I'm like, I'm on a public sidewalk, right? And, you know, and then all the police show up, and the sheriff shows up, and he's like, give me your ID. You know, a guy's just on a sidewalk filming. He's like, I don't need to give you ID. You do not have probable cause. You do not believe I've done any criminal act. So you cannot ask for my ID, right? Reasonable articulated suspicion. Articulable suspicion, right? You know that one? Anyways, continue. So yeah, the police, that's what I'm saying, they're kind of just following the same thing they do over and over.
Yeah, yeah. And it's really tragic, too. I mean, I don't agree with everything that I did in the situation. I definitely feel like I participated in what unfolded, and there's many things that I can take away from this and learn. But also, it is really sad because after I was arrested, and all the way from exiting the vehicle to going to a detainment cell at the police station, I was asking people, I'm like, so are you familiar with this knowledge? Like, does this make any sense? And every single one of them laughed at me, or they said, no, we have no idea what you're talking about. We don't know this knowledge. And it's like, what? How does this work? And what's really weird is, in the matter with the police, you know what I was tried in? I was tried in the common law court of Quebec.
I don't know what you mean. What does that mean?
So many people have talked about saying, like in the communities that I've talked in, they say common law doesn't exist in Quebec.
But you were specifically in a common law court.
I was tried and found guilty in a common law court. Now, the judge, or the man acting as the judge, knew more knowledge about quantum grammar than myself, so I got completely schooled in that regard. And that was a complete disaster. It was really, really frustrating. Basically, I wasn't even allowed to speak because everything that I was saying was considered as gibberish, but then they had actually gone through my documentation, and because I was sent to a psych ward for 6 days, and they went through all of my possessions, all of my paperwork, and basically deciphered it and determined from that paperwork, because of the notes that I made, that I knew legalese and I could be tried under their legal system instead of using the knowledge of, say, quantum grammar or common law. Even if it's the common law courts, the thing is, the common law courts are still based on the legal system of Quebec and the way that they have their codes and things like that. I mean, I don't know all the details, but yeah, basically they found a way to try me under their legal system and also deny me a fair and just trial, because one thing that I learned from this matter is the most important person in that room is not actually the judge or the man or woman acting as the judge. It's actually the man or woman who's acting as the court clerk. And
the court clerk. Who is the court clerk?
So the court clerk is actually the man or woman who opens or owns the court. So when they leave the room, the court has been closed, and they can walk back in, and they've opened a new court. And they did that to me while I was at trial on April 27th. And every time she did that, I saw the man who was acting as judge would look over at her, she would take a seat down, and anytime I had done notices or anything that else was part of my plan, it's like we had started all over, and their conversation was still continuing. Like, we were proceeding on with the trial, but anything that I had been saying up until that point was completely disregarded. Like, I required recordings or transcripts of the court record, and I also had submitted different notices with this knowledge, and none of it was acknowledged. And even when I wanted to submit documentation or my files, they would not accept them.
And it sounds like they broke it up into, this is part A, part B, or C and D, point 2.0, like you're saying.
Yeah, it was really, really difficult. My sister was there too, and
I know. She would send me the link, and I'd go on the website, I'd join to watch, and wait around, and it just kept on. It's like, oh, they didn't make it to you today. They didn't make it to you today, or it just wouldn't even work. You're allowed to. It's open public court, and they won't. In the end, it's like a bullshit. They won't even let you in.
They did that every step of the way. My mother and sister were only able to get in a very handful of times, and they actually had to do particular tricks. Sometimes they put themselves under false names so that they could enter the room.
Well, even me though, it wouldn't work a lot of the time. Just wouldn't work.
Yeah, they did that often. But not just you, but so many other people. And like you said, it's supposed to be a public court, but it was not public in any way, shape, or form.
No, it's just, it's all false, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, crazy. And so, what's your status now? You've served?
So this is kind of a weird thing, but I think it's worth sharing with people. So I was found guilty of 9 different charges, the 5 for the one with the police, and then the breaking of my court order. Now the breaking and entering charges was actually changed because I ended up having to hire a lawyer, especially after that trial went so poorly and I was found guilty on all 5 charges. The lawyer that I ended up hiring really, really helped me. But part of being able to get out of prison sooner, I had to accept guilt on things that he even admitted that I was not guilty of. So he actually went over the death threats and the criminal harassment towards the Crown prosecutors, and he said this just does not make sense. I can kind of see how they were going on the reason for these charges, but they just don't add up. You should not be charged with these, but however, in order to get out, you're
like if you try to push the non-guilty on those 2 particular things versus the other ones, it just goes on and on and on. You're going to be waiting, and you'll never make court for another 6 months.
Well, not that. I would be playing Russian roulette. So sure, I can go to court, but then I drag out the matter. So I go to court. I might be guilty or I might not be. But then I also have other matters because they divided the trials up in such a way that, say, if I pleaded guilty on everything, I would be out in the middle of July, which I was. And everything would be completed at court on June 30th. But if I didn't do that, I would have to go to trial for June 30th. But then I'd have to go to trial again on July 27th, and it still wouldn't be finished at that point. I wouldn't know whether or not I'd be guilty, and also it might change the time that I'm at prison, and so many different things.
Well, essentially, the system is the prison, dealing with it all. I mean, we all dealing with shit on a regular basis just from trying to deal with your phone company, you know? Or prison phone companies. And then, like you said, nobody wants time for this shit, and then it just makes life hell. And that's what it is. It's just a hell of the system, right? The process is the punishment.
Well, and what's really weird is, because I've had long conversations with men that I hired as a lawyer, and he values some of the ideas that I shared with him, and we had some very thoughtful conversations around how it doesn't make sense that when we're not guilty of something, or rather, when we are innocent of something, why is it so difficult for us to go through this process and actually have ourselves be proven innocent? And right from the get-go, you're being treated as guilty.
Mm-hmm. So the system really, I'm getting bitten by mosquitoes here. The system really is like a mosquito. You get bit first, and then you try to whack it dead after the fact, and then you get attacked again and again until you run away.
Well,
sorry, I'm just getting bit by mosquitoes. It just came to me as I'm trying to hold my phone.
I can see how you draw that connection. Totally. It was quite an extreme experience because some of the people that I was connected with at prison, so I went to 2 different prisons within the province of Quebec, one in Sherbrooke, and then after I was done with the matter with the police, they transferred me without notification or anything to a Montreal prison. And that was really weird. But,
well, then you're dealing with different languages as well. All the time. Yeah, that was a huge...
was only French.
I know, yeah, I mean, which was a huge disaster when your family doesn't speak French, and like your sister trying to make calls, and it's just like when you're trying to deal with telemarketers from India. It's just like, I can't understand you. Even worse.
Yeah,
So,
and you got to fit within their parameters, not they try and fit within yours.
sorry, I'm just trying to kill this damn mosquito. So, yeah, I got to get going soon here. I got to prep. We got a girlfriend coming over, and just in the middle of working on some stuff. I wasn't quite ready for your call. What do you think, in summary, like, what have you learned? You know, without taking more than 5 minutes to tell me.
This is going to come as a shock to probably you and many people. No one is our enemy. So even the way that I was treated through this whole thing, and I don't agree with a lot of it, make no mistake with that, but what's fascinating is when I really spoke my truth, people really valued the ways that I would try and connect with them on a meaningful level. And it was interesting how I could break through certain barriers, whether it was the man working in the prison or the man acting as the judge or all the different people, even the police officers too, that really at the end of the day, the reason why this was created in the first place was because, one, I made assumptions about them, they made assumptions about me. And the moment that we could let go of those assumptions and actually see that, yes, we have differences, but there is so much more that unites us. And ultimately, if you really think about it, in a weird way, and the police officers are only just wanting to do good. And the judge is just wanting to do what is good. And the people who work at the prison just want to do what's good. And that was the same with every single man or woman that I encountered through this whole way. And I might not agree with their way of doing it, but I made an effort to appeal to their goodness instead of what I disagreed with.
Okay, yeah. I mean, well, I remember the similar saying from your voice recording. You were kind of speaking the similar truth. I guess what I want to know more about, and, you know, in terms of the common law, how do you think that actually worked out for you, you know, with all of this, to instigate the issue? And because as soon as you disappeared, you know, we were working on the writing for when I was going to send to the Crown and to City of Kelowna, and then you disappeared, and I'm like, oh man, I don't know. I'm like, what the hell am I going to do with my case, right?
Yeah.
So I ended up I went back to Kelowna, and of course, when you were arrested, you know, I was trying to figure out, I'm like, this timing of this was so weird. Is this related to the news, right? Where my channel was shadow banned, and the police were looking for me. And then I'm like, is this related to the Irnieracing News at all, right? So you got to understand, I was kind of like, I wondered what this was, if there was a connection.
Yeah.
And then I went to the Kelowna courthouse late. I had the bylaw tickets, right? The parking, an abode overnight or whatever. And so I went to the City of Kelowna and got on the phone, and then got the supervisor of the bylaw to call me back, the day supervisor. And he reviewed the video footage. I don't know if it was mine or he had his own body cam, but it was probably the YouTube footage, because I'm sure they all saw it. Like all the City of Kelowna police and bylaw. Just, it spreads like wildfire, you know. Did you see this? And then he pulled back the ticket from collections.
Nice.
Right? And then I also went to, because I went to dispute the 3 tickets from Conrad Herbs. And man, he pulled a fast one on me from the, you know, it's kind of like from the grave or from the after effect, where I went to dispute the tickets, and he crossed out one of the 3 tickets on the ticket. He crossed out the first one where I failed to give him ID. You know, he crossed it out, right? So when I went to dispute it, they only disputed 2 of the 3 because one was non-legible, was crossed out. Well, guess what? He crossed that out just on my side of the ticket to fuck with me. So when I went to dispute it, they didn't dispute it. So then I'm like, you know, all of a sudden I went to insure my vehicle and I couldn't, because there was a pending ticket, and I'm like, I'm not going to go guilty on this ticket, so I couldn't dispute my truck. I actually had to tow my truck back to Kelowna.
Wow.
And then I went to the City of Kelowna courthouse, and I filed a late dispute, and I gave reason why. So I explained the reasoning how the ticket was crossed out on my side of the ticket and not theirs. And then, you know, I had to do pay $15 for the court to register it. And and then I won that. So then now I'm still waiting to go to court, you know, traffic court with Conrad Herbs, right?
Wow.
You know, that'll take probably, you know, 5-6 more months from now. So that's what I did. And because I'm like, I didn't want to just wait and do nothing, right?
Totally. And I think your way actually was the smarter path, because looking in hindsight, as much as I believed in and saw the value of what I was sharing with you, I do believe that it would have been riskier than going that way.
Like essentially sending a letter to the Crown and, you know, and telling them about I was detained for 3 hours and there's certain damages. Well, at that fact, now that you have gone through your process and it, you know, and then I'm in the middle of mine, I still think maybe it's worthwhile going and making an official complaint like we did, like I was speaking to that one retired sergeant. He's like, he was going to walk me through doing the complaint against Conrad Herbs, because there's still no penalty for him yet.
No.
Besides becoming internet famous asshole, right?
Yeah. Well, I would say that in itself is punishment, because it's public humiliation. So for me, and I mean, I invite you to do whatever you feel called to do. But for myself, I believe that sharing the truth in that manner is
Oh, I agree. That's huge for sure. Oh yeah, I mean, we, you know, 500,000 people, and you should see it, dude. I walk around Kelowna and people call me out. Hey, you're that guy in that camper, right, with the Christmas lights. Yeah, like on Canada Day, I have people walking by and they're like, "Oh my God, you were the guy that cop was harassing you." It's like, that was awesome, dude. Freaking good way to stand up for yourself. So I get tons of that, you know, and then of course I got some hate email and hate phone calls and stuff from, you know, a bunch of woke assholes too, right? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we're at 47 minutes, dude. You know, this little chat. So there's still so much more to learn about what's going on with you, and you should have seen. I released a few videos like right off the bat talking to your mom, and I did a video. And, you know, we did a little awareness and raising, you know, got your sister's website to get some people. And what was it, like a little, not the GoFundMe, but whatever, that church raising program. Yeah. And I mean, I don't think it worked very well. I think, you know, maybe pulled in like $600, but it was a start.
Well, in total, I think the amount of donations that I got was over $1,600.
Oh yeah, that's good. That's better. I mean, because I never asked what happened with it, so that's good. Yeah. It's good, and
well, it all went to the phone and paying some of the legal fees that we had, because it was there was a lot of expenses that came up as a result of this.
Yeah, I would imagine. I mean, yeah, it's just it. And the phone one was definitely one I didn't expect or learn about until now. So that's super stupid. And who takes that money, right? Where's them?
And you know what's even more crazy is you can show up to prison with your bank card, but there's no way you can access your bank accounts. You can't even call your bank. Really, I mean, that's the way that they've structured it. And so, if you want to be able to access money, somebody has to go to the post office and mail you money, which takes 3 to 5 business days, and then you have money. And the only way that you can use that money is through something called a canteen, and then you have to put it on your phone every week, and you have certain limitations, and it's just like a really archaic and
man, super archaic. Like, this is like, and they're doing this on purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so there's another point. Like, literally, they're trying to screw you every way possible to having difficulty to prove your innocence.
Yeah, well, and it's like a constant reminder you're having your freedoms being taken away.
Mm-hmm. Well, while you were locked up, dude, the whole world's having their freedoms taken away. You got a lot of catch up to do.
Yeah, totally. Even if I still have some freedoms taken away, I still warrior than I was before.
Yeah. Ironically, Pat King was just released a couple days ago as well on bail.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I haven't done it. I haven't done anything on that. I don't really. There's so many stories. I just can't keep up. I've been kind of trying to enjoy my life a little bit these days. I'm up at Silver Star Mountain right now, just doing downhill mountain biking and throwing out some videos from that.
Nice.
And I just did a video on the farmers' protest in the Netherlands, so that's a really big and important thing. And on the 23rd, they're asking the whole world to get involved. So the truckers are making a comeback. They're joining the farmers. This shit is, it's going to be Convoy 2.0 is really happening.
Yeah, sorry, fireworks are just going off for some reason here.
That's perfect.
Just as you say that.
Yeah. So
Timing.
I haven't done a story on it yet, but on the 23rd, the farmers have asked everyone worldwide to join the protest because the farmers' protest started in the Netherlands, and then everyone in Germany, Italy, and so forth. I mean, several prime ministers have had to resign. Boris Johnson has resigned. The Italian prime minister has resigned. There's a couple others as well, and in Sri Lanka, they freaking stormed. The president ran for it. He left the country, and they took over the capital, like in the building.
Wow.
I can't remember. There's a few others, and so the prime ministers and these globalist assholes, these WEF followers, the boys are getting picked off slowly. So hopefully Trudeau and the others are coming next.
Well, I guess we'll have to wait and see. It feels like a really weird time to come out, and I still am processing a lot of things, because 4.5 months of being in a place that is very different than your normal life is quite the shock, and I was getting familiar with it and the way that I had to live in there, and now I have to get used to living the way that I used to.
Yeah, Arthur Pulaski, he was also in prison the whole time you were in there as well, and he got out like a month ago as well. He was a political prisoner, and he had some stories where they're like make up bullshit about COVID, and they'd put him in the dirtiest cell you could imagine, feces and everything everywhere, and they put him in confinement for COVID protection, but then they put you in a disgusting cell. Yeah, this is sanitary. This is for quarantine, right?
I was almost put in a similar situation, because I ended up choosing certain things so that I could be in more sanitary environments, and also to ensure that I had access to the phone. But in prison, if I didn't take a COVID test, I would be put in a cell that basically is never cleaned.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And you have a whole series to check out, Border Tyranny. So I went to Utah and back, and I filmed. Yeah. And I don't know if you had checked out part 1 of 7 or 9 yet.
No, not yet.
Yeah, so...
I saw it, though.
Yeah, in May, I went down with Quentin, Q-Man, and on the way to the U.S., 0 questions. We didn't have any questions on the way to the U.S. besides, where you're going. And they searched the vehicle and everything and never asked us anything out of the normal of 5 years ago. On the way back, I filmed the whole thing, and you'll see they threatened me with a $5,000 fine. I refused to comply. I maintained my medical autonomy, etc., and so that's all documented, and I still have no fine to date. 2 months later.
Wow! Wow!
Oh yeah, and I ran into the mayor of Kelowna on Canada Day, and his father punched me in the back of the head.
His father?
Yeah, I think it was his father. He looked just like him. Yeah, I came up to Bazran, and he was talking to people, just on the boardwalk, and I'm like, "Hey, Bazran," he's like, "Are you happy about segregating and forcing the Kelowna employees out of work, right, for the vaccine mandate?" And then he just ignored me. So I called him out, right, heckled him a bit, and then I called him, "You asshole," and then his father like freaking hit my hand, and I caught and my phone went flying, and I caught it midair, and then he punched me in the back of the head, and then another guy stepped between us, and then I walked away. And that was that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
But unfortunately, the camera went flying, so I don't have... You can't see him punch me on video.
Yeah, so
there's no proof. Of it. You just hear the sound effects. Anyways, shit's been going down.
Yeah. beautiful Canada.
Yeah. Cool, man. Well, let's chat a little later, all right?
Absolutely, yeah. We'll definitely keep in touch, my friend.
All right, cool, man. Talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye.
Woo! Wow. Anyways, that's Joshua. We got some details. He was arrested, obviously, 4.5 months ago, and his mom and him were both dragged out the windows. His mom was charged with assault as well. I guess I should have asked him on how it went with his mom. We'll get that follow-up on that. But anyways, this is Marcel with Irnieracing News. Cheers. Thanks for listening.